Hello everyone, this is Jenny Gibbons of Woodsy Studio, and today I'm going to walk you through setting up your character layer sprites for the visual novel framework for UE4. So to start off, let me just quickly show you the layers for the default character already set up in the game. I named her Jessica. So we're going to go here to the VN framework. We're going to go to Art Assets, and then the characters folder here. And I have the sprites that we use for the world right here outside of the main folder. And then if you go into the folder, you can see all her different layers. So this is what we'll import into the game for a new character. And just so you know, you do not have to have this many layers for each character. Like if you just actually want to use one, you could. You would just put that as one of the layers and leave the rest blank. But if you want to take full advantage of the layer system, then that's what I'm going to show you. And it's also going to enable you to create blinks and mouth movements for your character. So to demonstrate, we're going to be importing some sprites that I've prepared. This is a character from another one of my games called Echoes of the Fae, The Last Sacrament, and her name's Katerina. So what I've got here are lots of different PNG files, and I've got them for each frame of the blinks, and I've got her top layer of hair, I've got her back layer of hair, so all these different layers that we're going to be importing. And you'll also see that there are different heads for each expression. Always important to, name your sprites carefully here to help you keep track. So I have a little system for that, although sometimes I mess up. And we've also got the mouths here for when she talks, and her head changes position slightly. So I've got two different sets of mouth movements for each head position. So these are 2048 by 2048 square PNG files, which is what I recommend that you use for the VN framework. And that's going to enable us to, zoom in and have close-ups without seeing degradation in the image. All right, so I've got all of these layers here. I'm going to go in into my Art Assets Characters folder, and I'm going to make a new folder called Cat. Gonna go in here, and this can be, a little finicky with UE4, but I'm gonna select all of these, and drag them in. Sometimes that messes up, but it looks like it's working. I'm gonna give it a second. And another way that you can do this is with the import button, and you can browse to those files and import them that way. All right, so we've got all our layers imported, and what I'm going to go ahead and do while they're all selected here is I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to Asset Actions, Bulk Edit via Property Matrix. This allows me to edit them all at once. I'm going to go into the level of detail, and I'm going to say no bitmaps. And that's something that I've just found is important to do for the way this visual novel framework is set up. Otherwise, you're going to see the layers look really blurry when they first appear. And we just don't need to worry about bitmaps in, a visual novel. But we don't need that, and we don't want it to ever be blurry. So set it to no bitmaps. Now also, while they're still all selected, I'm going to right click, go to Sprite Actions, and Create Sprite. And it's going to create a sprite for every single one of those layers. So now that we've got all of our layers imported for the character, we need to tell the framework what to do with them. First, you need to know that there are two different ways you can display your characters using this framework. One is in 3D space. It can appear in the environment. And the second is on the widget. And there are different ways you set each one of those up. So I've got it playing here. If you want to see, here is her character in the widget. So it shows up as a side portrait. It's still animated with blinks. It's got all of the same layers being used. It's got the mouth movement. So that's the widget version. And here in a second, she's going to spawn in 3D space. So here is what it looks like in 3D space. And so she's actually in the environment. You can zoom in, you can move her around. So it looks the same, but it's being displayed in a very different way. And you have to set those up differently depending on how you want to use the character. And you can do both of them for a character, or you can just do one. So let's say that you want to display your character in 3D space. We're going to set that up first. So before we go in and actually start defining these layers, I want to explain a little bit about how the framework is set up in case you ever want to modify it yourself. So if you go to VN Framework Structures, you'll see the different structs that I've created for the data tables we're going to use. One that you'll be using a lot is the st character. I just put st in front of these file names to indicate a struct. And here's where I've set up the different variables that we'll define for every single character. And so they include, first of all, an enum list of the character names, and we put that at the beginning. We put the actor we're going to use to spawn in 3D space if you want it to spawn in 3D space. We're going to tell it which data tables to use for the costumes and for the widget picture. We put all that here in the character data information. We're even going to have a layer overwrite list that helps with costume changes. You can give them an accent color, you can give them vertical adjust for their close-up camera, you can give them a custom scale in case you accidentally drew a lot of the layers too big or too small. You can actually shrink or make them a little bit bigger here if you need to. So that's the struct for our character system. So now we're going to go to the data table that's actually created from that struct. It's in VN Framework Card Data for character data, and it's called the CharacterDT, and this is basically a master list of all your characters. And for this tutorial, the VN Framework tutorial, we've only got Jessica here, but you can add a new one just by pressing the plus button there. You get a new row. The row name is going to be important if you ever want to have a costume assigned to that character. You can make this number relate to the global BP. I'll explain that a little bit in the future, but for now I'm just going to put 12. We're going to, we want to be able to pick her character name from our list here. So to do that, we need to add her to our character list. There are a few character lists, sorry about that. We're going to go to enums here, this folder. We've got an enumerated list of all the character names. So we're going to open that up. We're going to press new here. And on the new list variable, we're going to say Katarina. Save that. And now she's going to be available on our list. So that's how you add a character to that list here. So we're saying this row is for Katarina. Her costume index is 12. Her character actor, we're going to leave that as none, which is the default for 3D space. If you wanted to put parent actor, that would actually have the exact same effect. Okay, so now we're actually going to tell the VN Framework what to do with the various layers that we imported. I'm going to go here to VN Framework, Card Data for character data, right click, create a new folder for cat. I'm just going to call it cat DTs for data tables. Open that up, right click again, go to miscellaneous and then data table. For the struct, we're going to use st pose layers. Click OK. I'm going to name this cat cost 0 for costume 0 and open it up. So here you can see all the different layers that we're going to define. If you want to quickly look at what that struct looks like for the pose layers, you can go to VN Framework Structures, open up st pose layers. So if you ever wanted to modify what layers are available, you could do that here by editing the struct. So we're going to create a new row, And we're going to be doing this for each expression we want to use for cat. The row name is not important. I'm just going to put 0 and just number them for convenience. I'm going to start with normal just for simplicity. Normal's kind of their default expression. Gonna go to the textures here. Okay, so now I've navigated to where I placed all of her sprites. And for the normal expression, I'm gonna find the normal head here. Well, let me start at the top. First we start with the body sprite and the clothes. For Katarina here, I actually combine those into one layer. Lovely headless sprite here for both her body and clothes. So you can actually, when you have one and you don't have it in separate layers, you can just add it to whichever one you want to use. Leave the other one blank. So I'm just going to put it in the clothes layer here. Then we want to find her head. I'm going to find this normal head here. Drop it in. You can just use that little arrow if you have it selected for a quick drop in. The front hair, and again, this is the top layer of hair that it'll drape over their face, over their mouth and eyes, over their clothes. You don't have to use two different layers, but if they have a lot of thick hair that might go back behind their clothes, it helps to split it up. I have a 0 or 1 at the end of my names here to tell them apart. Here's the back layer with the 1 on it. Drop that in. Just show you real quick the difference. Here's what's going to lay in front. And here's for the back hair. You see it has thicker layers in the back that might go behind the shoulders. Wildcard, we're not going to use, but if you ever have something like like a necklace or little thing you want to add, you can use the wildcard layer for that and edit it as needed. So for her blinking, this is going to be a flipbook instead of a sprite, and we need to create a flipbook for that really quickly. All you have to do is select the frames you want to use. I've got her normal 0, normal 1 here. Right click, create flipbook, and then it's created for you. I like to put an FB at the front of mine just to tell the names apart. You can see it here. It has a pretty fast frame rate. I'm just going to drop it at 7 here, and then we drop it in. Same thing with the mouth. Here are her different mouth movements. Right click, create flipbook, change the name a little bit. The frame rate here actually doesn't matter, because what the framework is going to do is split each frame into a different image asset and show them at random, and that just helps give their speech a little bit of randomness instead of just seeing the same thing on a loop. So frame doesn't matter. I'm just lowering it now so I don't have to see it flapping very rapidly, and drop it in to the mouth FB. So we've got all of her layers now defined for her normal expression. So you just want to repeat that for all the different expressions. And let me show you really quickly. This is another enumerated list. So as you go, you might want to add additional expressions to use, or you might want to take some of these away. You want to go down here to the enums folder, expressions, and here's the list of those expressions. Just be careful about changing these. Other than adding new ones, if you ever go in and edit these directly and you've already got a lot of things defined, it might mess it up a little bit. It might scramble other places you've used it. So the earlier you can do that in the project, the better. Okay, so now I've kind of skipped ahead to having filled out some more of her expressions here. As you can see, just got pretty much all the layers defined here, except I left the wildcard blank. I left her body blank since that was combined with the clothes layer. And now we're ready to tell the framework to use this data table. So I'm going to close it out. I'm going to go to VN Framework, Character Data. We're going to open up the main character list here called the CharacterDT. We're going to go back to her row here. And now you see this column called Costume DT. That's where we're going to put her main list of layers. I'm going to go back and find it here in Cat DTs, select it, and drop it in. So now it knows what data table to look for her default costume when she displays in 3D. Right now I'm going to leave these other ones blank because we're not going to worry about that side widget image just yet. And we're also going to leave her layer overwrite list blank. Again, this is where you would tell it how to show different costumes. We don't need that just yet, so we're going to leave it blank. And for the sake of demonstration, let's give her a little color here, kind of like a pink to match her hair. Don't know if that quite matches, but there we go. And that's going to show on her speaker name when she talks, just a little accent color. So now we can actually display Katarina in the game. So I'm just going to pick a scene here to have her show up in. It's, let's see, we're going to use scene DTs here. This one, Jessica shows up in the beginning. She moves to -40, or she shows up towards the end, sorry. So we're going to have Katarina join her here. Let's make a new row. I'm going to have her show up right here when Jessica moves. So put Katarina here as the speaker, and then she doesn't actually have to say anything right away. She just has to be on that line with the character horizontal value. Since Jessica will be over at -40, let's put Cat at +40, and the scale, gonna put it the same as Jessica here so they don't look oddly proportioned, which is 1.5. So now right after Jessica shows up and then moves, Cat is going to show up next to her. And we'll just put a little line here. If you leave it as nothing, it's going to be just her default normal expression when she shows up. Then we'll have her smile and say, "Now I'm here too." And what else? Let's try a different one of our expressions we defined. I don't know. Just putting a dumb line here for demonstration. All right. And the row names are not important. Just to clean it up a little bit, I'm just going to put a slightly different value here. But one of the nice things about this framework and how it works is you can add lines like this, move them around as needed. That's not going to break anything. It's still going to go from top to bottom. All right, so let's try this out and see if it works. Go to play. All right, so I've got it playing now. I'm going to get to the end of the scene here. I'm going to skip a little bit. All right, now Jessica's shown up, and then Kat should show up right after that. There she is! Yay! And this is a good example of the characters being a little oddly proportioned. I made them for completely different projects, so that would be part of the reason. Fortunately, because of the character scale values you can use, you can edit that a little bit. So we can demonstrate that now. Let's go to the CharacterDT. So in general, you know, you don't want to make things bigger if you can help it, because we don't want to scale the sprites up if we can help it. So I'm going to make Jessica smaller. And you want to work in really small numbers here, because anything you change is going to be a drastic difference. So I'm going to put like 0.9 So you do want to be mindful of those scale numbers. Oh, whoops. All right, that's a little bit better. Obviously, they're weird to compare here because they're drawn in completely different styles. But let's think of another thing going on here. You might notice that the sprite brightness is a little bit different for each one just because of how they're drawn. And you might be like, oh man, I wish Katerina showed up a little bit brighter. There's actually something you can do for that. I've considered making it another variable here, but it's not right now. What you can do, go into your blueprints. We want to find the parent actor. So this is the actor that is actually spawned in 3D space whenever you create a character. You can even see if you go to the viewport here. Here is where all the layers are set up for 3D space. And when you have different characters, spawning, it'll use the correct data tables to replace these layers. And these are just the default ones. So if we actually want to create a version for Cat that is a little bit brighter, you can right click, you can create a child blueprint class, and I'm going to call this Cat Actor. So now we have a child of the parent actor just for Cat, where we might go in and change a lot more variables if we wanted, if we really wanted Cat to be different. It's inherited, you don't see them right away, but it has inherited all the functions of the parent actor, so it can still do, right now it's going to be exactly like the parent actor. But we want to change it a little bit, and there is a variable here called brightness add, and that affects their brightness. So this might be a bit too much, but so if I want Cat to be a little brighter than all the other actors, I'm going to put 2 here. That's going to affect her brightness, so let's see how that looks. Oh wait, before I can demonstrate, I actually need to update the character list with the new actor I want to use. Oh, something's freezing. Okay. I'm going to go to character data, the CharacterDT. So here's where that character actor column is important. We want to tell it to actually spawn the Cat actor for Cat, because we've got that custom code in there for her. So now let's play it. And look, now she's a lot brighter because of that brightness add. Looks like 2 is actually about correct. So as you can see, there are lots of different ways you can edit each character to make them look the way you want once you have all your layers set up. And automatically she's blinking, talking when she needs to, changing expression. And you've got your first new character all set up. Thank you all for watching. This is Jenny Gibbons of Woodsy Studio, and I will continue to make more tutorials showing a bit about how I've set up the visual novel framework and just general good tips for creating visual novels in Unreal Engine 4. If you'd like to learn more about my games and support my work as a creator, check out my Patreon. There's a link in the description. And thank you so much.